At the end of the day, it's all about trades. I know y'all might be looking at this YouTube channel and saying, Lego, like almost every single video has been about some sort of a trade or what some insider is talking about in regards to potential player movement. And don't get me wrong, I understand that a lot of these trades that we talk about don't end up happening. But the fact is, I'm super interested in all the hypothetical ideas, and based off of the comment section, it seems like y'all are interested too. So with that said, today we are talking about the idea of the Montreal Canadiens acquiring Mason McTavish, and which assets could be tossed into a deal to make this go through. Our source today is that same article from ESPN.com, published on June 19th by Ryan S. Clark, Kristen Shilton, and Greg Wyszynski. Trades we would like to see during the 2026 NHL offseason. Now, this is a pretty broad timeline. The offseason. Not in the days leading up to the draft, or not on the draft floor itself. It's just throughout the course of the next few months, and that gives us a lot of room to talk about specific guys and which teams could be getting which of the hottest names on the market. Mason McTavish out of the Anaheim Ducks is one of these hot names on the market. He is 23 years old, 6'1", 218, and his contract goes on till the end of 2031. The fact is, though, you didn't need to hear that from me. We all know Mason McTavish is a pretty reasonably good young NHL center. We all know that the Anaheim Ducks don't really have the best spot for him in their lineup, it seems. At least compared to what maybe Mason McTavish feels he deserves at this stage of his NHL development. He's 23 years old, and he's coming off of a 40-point year, one season after putting up 50 points in a year. And with Pat Verbeek potentially shopping McTavish once more, it opens the door as to whichever teams could be interested in acquiring a second-line center for the long term. Enter the Montreal Canadiens, a team that has been linked to Mason McTavish for months, heading into last year even. This ESPN article proposes a trade which sees Montreal getting Mason McTavish in exchange for David Reinbacher, a second, and a fourth. Could we see David Reinbacher heading over to the Anaheim Ducks alongside of some draft capital for Mason McTavish? Well, guess what? David Reinbacher has his own story too. 21 years old, 6'2", 194, right-handed guy who was drafted by Montreal in the 5th overall spot, 2023 NHL Entry Draft. Quite famously taken over Matvei Michkov, Reinbacher had a pretty okay season this year. 24 points, 57 games played. He had 2 Canadiens games, and admittedly, he looked really good in those 2 Canadiens games. He had a point as well, so he is quite literally a half a point a game NHL-level defenseman. Ultimately, though, David Reinbacher has been held back by injuries, and as a 21-year-old, you would expect that this is going to be the time where Reinbacher actually starts to make a significant impact at the next level, whether that's in Montreal or that's in Anaheim. That remains to be seen. This article goes out there and says that the McTavish for Reinbacher trade works because Montreal's need for a second-line center behind Nick Suzuki became glaringly obvious as the Canadiens stumbled offensively through the Eastern Conference Finals against the Canes. Their inability to generate shots, not to mention goals, stemmed from a lack of depth down the middle. There's a perfect opportunity to address that issue by bringing in McTavish. Montreal has shown interest in McTavish before, inquiring on his status last year when he was at an impasse with Anaheim on negotiating a new contract. But the Ducks did eventually ink the 23-year-old to a 6-year, $42 million deal. But then, nothing about the first season of that contract went to plan. McTavish failed to thrive under coach Joel Quenneville and was a healthy scratch at times, while producing 17 goals and 41 points in 75 games. A change of scenery seems like the best course for all involved, and the Canadiens should be first in line. He has the talent to succeed as part of a young squad that's on a serious upswing. Now, this is a pretty good summary as to everything that McTavish has gone through. The Canadiens, though, they also have to be mindful of their future, the article says. Philippe Danault has only 1 year left on his deal, and if McTavish were to join now, he could take lessons from Danault, particularly on the defensive end, and provide Montreal with insurance in case the veteran moves on next summer. To a similar degree that the Canadiens require center depth, the Ducks could use an NHL-ready player on the back end. All three of Anaheim's top defensive veterans, Radko Gudas, Jacob Trouba, and John Carlson, are UFAs. And I don't know if y'all seen this, but John Carlson, that guy's going back east. He might even go back to Washington. Who really knows? That guy's not staying in Anaheim. The Ducks could retain one or two of these guys, maybe Gudas, maybe Trouba, certainly not Carlson. But adding Reinbacher, the 5th overall pick in 2023 and only 21 years old, would give the Ducks another potential cornerstone on its blue line. And in a draft as deep as the one coming, collecting picks is also going to benefit the Ducks long term and their goals of transitioning into a perennial playoff contender. It's possible Anaheim will want a little more of a sweetener for McTavish, so another 7th round pick being tossed into the mix wouldn't hurt. But it's pretty clear McTavish's time in Anaheim is probably coming to a close, and Montreal is in a good position to give the Ducks a solid return. Now, I seem to be a little less optimistic on the idea of David Reinbacher being as effective as he could be as Kristen Shelton seems to be, courtesy of her article posted on ESPN. While it's true, Reinbacher could be a very solid top 4 option, maybe even a top 2 option if you go by minutes played. You don't necessarily have to be the flashiest point-producing guy to be a number 1 defenseman. Might I remind you of Jay Bouwmeester and what he once upon a time did with the St. Louis Blues. But David Reinbacher is a player that, until we see it, we haven't seen it. And I know that's like the most simple, straightforward analysis anybody can say about a prospect. He could be good. It's just I don't know how confident I am in saying that he will be as good as he should be right away after just 2 NHL games and a number of years where he was either dealing with bad teams or bad health and just he was all over the place. I think David Reinbacher and his development is such a yellow flag at this point that I don't know if he really has the trade gravitas, you could say, to get a Mason McTavish trade done and be the main part of the deal. I say main part because, let's face it, McTavish, 2nd round pick, 4th round pick, the biggest element of this trade is Reinbacher, unless Montreal were to give up a 1st round pick instead of a 2nd. But I don't know, you can let me know your thoughts in the comment section whether or not this trade actually makes sense. If you take a look at the Montreal Canadiens subreddit, they're kind of saying the opposite. I'd hold on to Reinbacher. We also need right-handed defensemen this year and long term. I'd be willing to swap Engstrom, though, and earlier draft picks. What do you say? Top comment on the RHAB sub says the Canadiens' track record of trading away young defensemen for forwards is grim. Talk about Chris Chelios, Ryan McDonough, Mikhail Sergachev, and to a lesser extent, Alexander Romanov. I feel like this is going to be turning around with the Bolduc and Mailloux trade. All jokes aside, I wouldn't trade Reinbacher, especially now that his value is kind of low. And there really aren't many right-handed defensemen under 25 like him in hockey. You wouldn't trade him when his value is high either. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense too. So, lots of Canadiens fans seem to be disagreeing with the idea of trading away David Reinbacher for a Mason McTavish. You can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, though. How do you feel about this entire conversation? Yay or nay? Reinbacher, as well as a 2nd and a 4th for Mason McTavish? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. Wait a minute, look at this, eh? Huh. 7th round pick, talked about in the article. 4th round pick, talked about in the trade proposal. Make that make sense. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.